Hello to everyone. My name is Sheila Yon and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And if you're new here, then just welcome. I'm so happy to have you join us for today. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell button to get notified when I upload a new video because you do not want to miss the content I am bringing to you, baby, okay? Now, today we are going over 5 facts about the Yamassee Indians. I have done other videos like this similar, stating the 5 facts about a certain tribe. For example, I have done 5 facts about Choctaw, Ishuk, and Cherokee. So if you want to check them out after this video, click the description below for my playlist link and it would take you straight to my 5 facts about Indigenous people series. Now, back to the video. Not too many people are familiar with the Yamassee Indians, and I see why. Because of their complexion and how they handle colonizers, of course, anyone who was colonizer identified would be offended by just hearing their name. I'm going to just say this. The Yamassee are no joke. I have heard about the Yamassee through Facebook, but it wasn't until recently I did further research about them, and now I realized just how important their existence is here in America. So without further ado, I'm gonna shut my trap and get right into this video. Okay, so who are the Yamassee? All right, everybody like, who are the Yamassee? Now a lot of people be like, oh, well, the Yamassee are a refugee tribe and they're just a mixture of African and Native American people. But however you want to go about it, the Yamassee people made a very big impact, not only in indigenous history, but in American history and also in world history too, because the Yamassee really put on for the culture and really showed just how much we practice our ways of our people. Okay, the Yamassee people, the tribe is located in South Carolina, on the border between southern Georgia and northern Florida, and some of them live on the Miccosukee Reservation in Florida. Of course, other families can be found in Texas and Oklahoma, and this is because they are separated by the Trail of Tears. Now, the Yamassee are said to be from a Muskogean stock, and the word Yamassee is a Muskogee dialect meaning gentle. Now, it is said that the Yamassee go by different names, so I'm not even gonna even try to pronounce them. I'm sorry, but the other names the Yamassee do go by as Seminole too and Gale, and I have heard those two tribes a lot when I researched my American Indian studies. So I was like, okay. So basically, when it comes to the different names of the Yamassee are called, it could be either the colonizers were mistaking other tribes for Yamassee or grouping other tribes with the Yamassee, or they were just probably all grouped in together either way. But either way they go by different names. Okay, and also let's not forget too that they were described as Negro and said to be darker than the Creeks, although the term Creek was developed by Europeans to describe Yamassee bands or clans. Now, let's go on to fact number 1. The Yamassee War ended American Indian slavery. And not a lot of people are familiar with the Yamassee War. And the Yamassee War is where the Yamassee people really invoked the spirit of war on colonizers, because colonizers were really pushing it with the Yamassee people. They kept enslaving them and abusing them and doing encroachment on their property, stealing their property. So the Yamassee people were not with it, okay? They teamed up with the Choctaws of Mississippi, the Catawbas, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name, okay, and many other indigenous tribes too. And they created one of the most potent native coalitions ever to oppose the British in colonial North America. And the Yamassee War was one of the bloodiest wars in colonial America. And why, you probably ask? Well, almost 10% of the white population were killed in South Carolina. And almost all of the people that were killed, or should I say the white people that were killed, were slave catchers. So you do the math here. And after the destruction of outlying settlements, North Carolina and South Carolina ended the native slave trade by the way of the British. Although slavery among some tribes continued, and this didn't stop Europeans from completely enslaving indigenous people, because if they look Negro enough, or if they had they did reclassify indigenous people as different races so they could enslave them, so they could further enslave them. So yes, paper genocide is a real thing. Yamassee people are survivors of paper genocide. And you see this with the Yamassee War. Because again, they were calling the Yamassee Negroes and all these other different terms. And then once the Yamassee was like, no, we don't want to be slaves no more. We don't want to go through slavery no more. They was like, nah, like, we're going to enslave you some more. We're going to just reclassify you something else so we can continue enslaving indigenous people. So yeah, the Yamassee War ended American Indian slavery, but then again, not every indigenous person that was already enslaved were freed. So keep that in mind. Furthermore, because of the relationships between the Yamassee and South Carolinians were bad and deteriorating rapidly, the Yamassee elected a prince, and this prince was more than likely the nephew of the Yamassee king. And they sent young this young man to London. He spent 21 months with Anglican schoolmasters and tutors to transform him into a missionary for the Society for the Propagation of the Gospel. Okay. And honestly, this was not by the doing of Europeans. The Yamasee people actually wanted to do this because diplomacy and democracy are things that were created by indigenous people. So, in reality and honestly, these are things that are by the way of indigenous people. And again, you can't have these things with people. You can't have peace. You can't come to terms with folks who ain't trying to come to terms with you, okay? So when the prince returned in Charleston in 1715, then called Charlestown, at the time of the Yamassee attack of the British in the Yamassee War, it was shortly after his father and the rest of, well, not his father, but most likely his uncle, because remember, the Yamassee prince was not a son of the Yuha king, okay? He was most likely a nephew. So his uncle and the rest of his family were taken captive as slaves by the Europeans and sold off in slavery in Barbados. So I was very heartbroken. And then to top it off, the guy he went to um, London with, Reverend Johnston of Charlestown, he ends up dying. Okay, he ends up dying because he drowned. Okay, and after Johnston drowned, the prince disappeared. The fate of the 19-year-old Prince George, aka the Yamassee Prince, is unknown. He disappeared from history after the death of Johnston. So no one doesn't really know what much happened to him afterwards. But however, I did find this different because I'm like, oh, okay, look at it. It's just people trying to keep the peace and stuff. But it was a failed attempt, but I think it was a good attempt too. All right. And furthermore, fact number 3, The Yamassee Confederacy became one of the most powerful and wealthiest Indian nations in the Southeast during the late 17th and early 18th centuries through their military and economic alliance with the Carolina colony. Fact 4, the Yamassee stroke. Y'all, I know, y'all probably like, now, why would you even... No, but for real, y'all, okay? Because I was like, oh, okay, they have a whole stroke named after them, okay? The Yamassee stroke. At the end of the 17th century, a certain stroke was used in paddling canoes along the coast of Georgia and South Carolina and Florida, which was called the Yamassee stroke. I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm like, okay. And y'all, last but not least, fact number 5. Yamassee had one of the first reservations in America. Now, I now know you're like, okay, y'all, now hold up, wait a minute now. I went on Google and typed in the first reservation in America, and the Brotherton Indian Reservation popped up. So, what do you mean? Okay, well, I have came across this video, right? Yamassee clan come to visit St. Augustine, part 1. And I will link the video in the description below. And the Yamassee chief you hear on the right side of this picture, he talks about how the Yamassee had one of the first reservations in America. And I heard him saying in the video, I'm like, is he for real? Is he saying the truth? So I'm over here doing my research. And it turns out it actually is. Like, Yamassee actually did have one of the first reservations in America, if not just the first. According to the book, The Southern Frontier by John Solomon Otto, he says, and I quote, the Carolina Assembly set aside a reservation in 1707 for the Yamassee tribe. Since the Yamassee supplied Carolinians with valuable deer skins, the reservation was to serve as their deer hunting ground. As a result, the Assembly forbade white colonists to graze any hogs, neat cattle, or other stock within the reserve. But as Carolinians migrated southward, their livestock inevitably strayed into the Yamassee Reservation. Cattle, in particular, competed with deer for woodland forage. As cattle populations waxed, deer populations waned. The Yamassee Indians who hunted deer for skins to exchange for British trade found it increasingly difficult to meet their trade debts. Impoverished and frustrated, the Yamassee attacked Carolinian settlements in the spring of 1715. The resulting Yamassee War devastated Carolina's southernmost plantations, destroying near 400 of the white inhabitants, with many houses and slaves and great numbers of cattle. Livestock losses were especially disastrous. The Surveyor General of Carolina predicted that it must be some years before they can have any quantities of beef and pork to supply the West Indian islands as formerly. The war plunged Carolina into economic depression. Okay, so like I said, don't be sleeping on the Yamassee people now, okay? Because obviously they were coming with the heat. They were coming they were coming with the heat. So I'm so glad to have done this video about the Yamassee Indians, because not too many people are aware of their contributions to American history and also world history, as we just went over how they went international just to make relations between the English and the Yamassee better. So kudos to Yamassee people and Yamassee Nation. It was such an honor researching the history of y'all guys. And that is all for this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Achila Yona and on Twitter at Mama Yona. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't not forget to subscribe, okay? Because y'all be leaving, don't be subscribing, and that's rude. So subscribe and hit that bell notification when I upload a new video. So again, thanks again for tuning in, and until the next time, bye.